Merrill Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Just on 10 to 8, I found the Dubbo Region Mayor Matthew Dickerson. He's on the telephone. Hello, Matt. How are you?
Good morning, Brett. How are you going?
Going well, thank you. It's nice to chat to you because you've got, one more ordinary meeting next Thursday to go before the caretaker period kicks in, I suppose.
Correct. Next Thursday night is the last council meeting. That'll be our 35th council meeting of this term of council. The next day, 16th of August, officially we go into caretaker mode. And that doesn't mean things stop. We could still actually have a council meeting when we're in caretaker mode, but you just can't make binding resolutions on the next council. You can't make controversial decisions about DAs. There's a whole range of rules that you've got to be careful of, awarding tenders, sacking CEOs, a whole range of things that you're not allowed to do during caretaker mode.
Yeah, right.
But there's also a whole range of things you need to do in caretaker mode, which is still keep council running.
Okay, and under the Act, in an election year, the council must report the achievements over the previous 4 years. And we kind of started last week to talk about that, but then I had to cut you short because I ran out of time. It's called the end-of-term reports. What's in these reports?
Well, the idea is that you do report back to the community what happens, and the Local Government Act does actually say 4 years, but in this case, because it has been a shortened term, then the end-of-term report is expected to be over 3 years. So we've officially delivered that to the community on the 26th of July. That was in a presentation format, but we've also got documentation that's available for the community to look at. And it's really just a summary of what happened, just to basically look over what happened, because sometimes you forget, Brett. 3 years ago, or about 2 years and 7 months ago, this council started, and you think about things that happened back then and they were incredibly important to the community at that point in time. But then you move on, and as a council, as I said, we're up to 35 council meetings. Very important decisions are made at every one of those. Whatever affects you individually might be very important for you, but there are lots of people in the community impacted by the decisions councils make and councillors make. So every time we put our hands up to vote, that's an important decision for someone in our community.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the election was also twice delayed due to COVID-19, and you had 2 councillors resign during 2021. Do we call that the dark days, or is that just me?
I won't make any commentary on that. I suppose the biggest challenge for us as a group of councillors coming in is the 2 things you mentioned there were significant, but also the performance improvement order. And when we came into council, there was this performance improvement order hanging over our heads. Now, that was imposed on council on the 29th of June 2021, and that basically was the local government minister saying there are some things that are occurring that aren't really going the way they should be going, so we're keeping a pretty close eye on you, and if you don't fix up your act, then suspension or complete sacking of the council are options to go after the performance improvement order. So when we came in, it might have been the shortest term of council, Brett. We might have come in, if we didn't do things correctly, the local government minister might have said, thanks very much, you're gone, we'll put an administrator in and get you sorted out, and then we'll have another election later on at some stage. But obviously that didn't happen. By May 2022, we had that performance improvement order lifted, and then away we could go. And I think, one other thing, Brett, with that PIO that probably didn't help was the couple of things you mentioned there, but we also had 5 different CEOs in the last term of council. That doesn't help the long-term stability. So
that's sort of unheard of, isn't it, in that duration, isn't it?
It's certainly unusual, and some of those CEO terms were very short because there was an acting CEO for a period of time. But again, stability. And Dubbo City Council had been very accustomed to stability. We had Tony Kelly for a long time, then we had Mark Riley for a long time. So having 5 CEOs in one term certainly didn't help that stability. 2 mayors, 2 deputy mayors. It was a bit of turmoil, I suggest.
All right. Well, I've got about 3 minutes to keep talking with you. You met with the Premier. Was that yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah. So we've got a group called Regional Cities New South Wales, 15 cities across the state. I'm the chairperson of that group, and we meet in Sydney regularly. We catch up with ministers, put views forward that are common to those various groups. But the Premier, we met with the Premier when he was the opposition leader, and he was very keen to continue those discussions. So he was keen to have a discussion with us. And so we met with the Premier yesterday. One of the things that we did say to the Premier that's been fantastic has been the fact that he has made sure that we have good access to the ministers. we don't expect the Premier to know everything about everything. That's why you've got the ministers in place. So it was good to catch up with the Premier. Probably the main things to talk about from that perspective was housing. Housing is critical, and things that we can influence, I suppose, that's the important part. So we really talked about how we can work with the government to make sure we deliver housing. We've got people who want to live in Dubbo. How can we make sure they've got housing? So that was obviously important. Airports and transport, they were another big topic of discussion. Obviously, Rex makes that topical at the moment, but just transport in general and making sure that regional locations have got good access or our residents have got good access to the city. And then we did also talk a little bit about that linkage between regional cities, New South Wales and the state government to make sure we have good open lines of communication, which we have had over the last year and 3 or 4 months that this government's been in place, and we want to make sure that continues. But having the Premier there, and he was only due to be with us for 30 minutes, but he pushed that out. He said to his staff, no, we've got some important things to talk about, let's push it out. So we ended up being there for about 45 minutes, which was fantastic.
Yeah, which is great. Did the Rex Airlines issue come up during that chat?
Yeah, that was around that airport, around the transport, all around that. And again, we didn't want to make it a discussion just about Rex because there's a bigger picture here in affordability of transport for regional locations, even just the affordability of making sure we've got airlines at an affordable rate, airports that we don't have to have subsidised by our community, a range of issues there. But those transport linkages, which the state government takes advantage of, Brett, we've made sure that we've got airports in regional locations so that you've got things like state government employees, health employees can get access to these regional locations. So the airports are important for the state government.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing to put back on his agenda, or at least under his eyes so he can see it. So that is good news. I'm just almost out of time. I meant to mention to you, a good-looking bunch of people on this photo on the end-of-term report. You've got your bling on and you're all in gowns.
That was our official photos we had for the council term. So we've got our gowns on. We've got the nice red gown of the mayor and the light blue gown of the deputy mayor and then the black gowns for the other councillors. So, yeah, we're a good-looking bunch when we put all those gowns on. There's no wigs on there, though. I just want to make mention of that. No wigs, Brett.
Oh, yeah. No, it looks like you've all got your own hair.
That's right.
No,
Yeah.
I just joke. Hey, thanks for the access to yourself and, of course, the regional council throughout the term. I really appreciate that. We hope in the next 12 months or the next term that we'll have the same access with you, Mayor Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council. Have a great day.
Thanks, Brett, and thanks for your time as well.
Always a pleasure.
Mero Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.